And Sergio Garcia is a great example of that. So I'm not going to spend much time. I'm just going to introduce this great example to our community from Chico, California. Sergio Garcia, thank you, and welcome to Salinas.
Well, thank you so much, and good evening, good night. Thank you so much for being here. First of all, I want to thank the Liberty Initiative for taking it upon themselves to reach out to me and making this invitation. Thank you so much. Not only do I want to thank you, I also want to commend you for coming together as a group and for noticing a problem, noticing something that needs to be addressed in this great nation. We right now are the country is going through a hard time. The economy is still suffering, and there's a lot of work to be done. And to me, it's refreshing, and it brings a lot of joy to my heart to see young people taking it upon themselves to get together to work towards a greater cause, and that's the betterment of our nation. And I say our nation because even though I'm currently undocumented and I don't have a piece of paper, I feel that this is my country. This is the country I have spent most of my life in. This is where I have worked. This is where I have studied, and this is where I intend to do whatever I can to get that economy back up and running. You know, as I mentioned in the past, a lot of people say that because the economy is down and it's so hard right now, we see these numbers of unemployment that are record high. And so people believe that this American dream doesn't exist anymore, or that if it does, it's nearly impossible to attain. Well, maybe I'm a dreamer, maybe I'm an idealist, but I want to believe that the possibility of a great America, the possibility of being successful still exists out there. It just takes a little bit more hard work, a little bit more dedication, and a little bit more commitment to being successful. As Cesar mentioned, I haven't had an easy path. Without having my documents, I wasn't able to have a job. I literally had to, during my teenage years, go around picking up cans on the side of the roads. That wasn't really cool. It wasn't fun, but it was what I had to do. If I wanted to make it, if I wanted to succeed, that's what I had to do. Luckily for me, living in a rural community, we have during a certain time of the year, you can pick up walnuts as well, and they'll buy those from you. And I remember those days because I guess I must have been a real dreamer, real idealist, I guess, because early in the mornings when you get out there to the fields and it's cold or it's hot, or depending on the weather, you get out there early in the morning, and I would put my math skills to work, and in the first half an hour, the first hour, I would put together a full sack of walnuts, and I say, well, I can get, $5 per sack, whatever. And I did it in so much time. I said, man, this is going to be a good business for me. Of course, by the middle of the day, I was starting to question that. I'm like, well, I have slowed down quite a bit. It's taken me much longer to come up with the second sack. And I'm hungry now, and it's not going as hot as I thought at the beginning. By the end of the day, you're starving. You want to be done with it. Your back's killing you from being out there, picking up walnuts all day, and you just want to be done with that. You realize that you're not gonna make the kind of money you thought you were, and then you end up going out and trying to get something to eat, usually something from Burger King or McDonald's, the cheapest you can find, and you still end up with very little money after gas and stuff like that. But that is what you had to do. That is what I had to do in order to make it. And for better or worse, I just always been extremely stubborn. And once I decided at the young age of 10 years old that I wanted to be an attorney, I wasn't smart enough to change my mind. Cesar said he never went to school, law school. He never wants to go to school. And I just said, smart man. It's not the most exciting experience, but it's well worth it. If you have a passion for it, if you want to use it as a tool for community improvement as a vehicle to help society, then go for it. I always encourage people that if that's their passion, I get a lot of emails these days now from people who are dreamers, are currently undocumented, and they want to become attorneys, but they're like, what's the point? What's the point of doing that if after spending 20 years like you did, you're gonna get to a point where they tell you, no, you can't go any further. You reach as far as you're going. This is the glass ceiling for you. You know, I never anticipated to be here because all throughout the history of the California bar, they have never made it a requirement for anybody to be a citizen in order to be an attorney. Even now, there's no requirement for citizenship. There's no requirement for legal residency. However, a few months before I graduated law school, apparently the bar organizations from all the states gathered somewhere in the country, and somebody mentioned, hey, have you guys considered what the 1996 Act, Immigration Act, how that's gonna influence whether somebody who's undocumented can practice law or not? And they said, well, that's kind of a good question. We hadn't thought about that. And so they said, maybe it's a good idea if we start asking people. And I'm like, I didn't know, but if I had known, I would have been great. I'm like, I didn't count on this. And of course, when they ask me, it's all computerized. They have you fill out your moral character application online. They give you this big of a box to answer, are you a U.S. citizen, legal resident, or what's your status? That's about verbatim what the question is. And the best, most accurate answer I could give them was that my status was pending. Pending is a word I use. And I think that accurately and reflects my status because on November 18, 1994, my father, who is now a U.S. citizen, applied for me to adjust my status. January 15, 1995, I was approved. I have a letter that says, Mr. Garcia, you'll get a green card. It's going to take a while, probably 3 to 5 years for us to process that. And even then I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do 3 to 5 years out of status? Well, regretfully, it's been 18 years at this point, going on 19 years waiting, and my paperwork's still in the mail. And so that's when I said, and all along I have noticed, that our immigration system's broken and it just does not work. And so I have taken this time that I have been unable to practice law to kind of send out that message and to try to hopefully become, one, a beacon of hope for others who want to follow in my footsteps, and two, somebody that tries to unite people, not only Hispanic, not only Asian, Caucasian, anybody who is willing to listen that, hey, fixing immigration reform is not a Hispanic Latino problem. It involves everybody. I think fixing the immigration system will benefit the nation. I think it will allow us to exploit the comparative advantage that we have. I mean, some of us are good in certain areas. Others are better doing something else. I mean, and when I find somebody who's, like, for instance, my brother's a great mechanic. I never bother to worry about my car. Every time I have a problem, I go to him because I know he can do it a lot quicker than I ever could and do a better job. So in this instance, in my case, the only thing I'm asking the California Supreme Court at this point to do is to allow me to contribute to this great country. And I think Kamala Harris, our great Attorney General, said it best when she said, independently of Mr. Garcia's status, he has a duty to contribute in taxes. And that's all I want to do. And so I appreciate her support. She actually filed an amicus brief on my behalf. Sadly, out of 17 amicus briefs filed, the Department of Justice, this is the U.S. Department of Justice, filed an amicus against me or in opposition of me being licensed. I found interesting that our briefs numbered over 1,000 pages in legal reasons why I should be able to get a license, many of which are as simple as the fact that they ask you to go to school, they have you pay for school, they have you pay the bar fees, and at the end of this, you're supposed to get this license. It's like an implied agreement that you have that if you fulfill all these requirements, at the end we'll give you this license. Well, unfortunately, that didn't happen for me. once the California bar found out that I did not have my status, said, well, wait a second, we never encountered this issue. We need to really research it. They took a couple of years, dissected my life as best as they could. There were some former FBI agents that kind of took it upon themselves. Well, they were asked to do that, so they followed me around to find out if I was indeed a good person or if there was any legal reason that they could simply deny my license. Sadly for them, they wasted taxpayer money on that because they just said, you're way too boring. There's nothing about you that we can possibly find that will give us legal grounds to deny your license. So at that point, they switched gears. They decided, we're going to endorse you. We're going to tell the California Supreme Court that we believe you should be licensed. And I think that, one, they absolutely did their job. They did their due diligence in researching my life and my background and making sure that I was the kind of person that should be allowed to be an attorney. They certainly took their time doing it. Two, I think that that's the right proposition. Of course, I should be biased because I am the applicant. But I think it's the right proposition because I do not find what the nation's interest is in denying me a license. If given a license, what am I going to do with it? I'm going to go out there, I'm going to create my own company, which has always been my dream, have my own law firm. As a matter of fact, I already had it. Be able to hire people, one or two at least, contribute to the economy in that way, making more money. Obviously, I will be paying more taxes. And like I mentioned, I was actually a practicing attorney. There was a mistake that happened, and I was able to practice for a couple of weeks. I was sworn in and whatnot. And in those 2 weeks, I had one client sign with me every single day. 15 days, I had 15 clients. But by that point, I had hired an accountant and a personal assistant. My accountant said, Mr. Garcia, you're a workaholic. At this rate, you will hit the $1 million mark in your first year as a practicing attorney. And my first and most important question was like, that's great. What's my tax liability? She said, $390,000. I said, sure, I don't mind sharing the money if I'm making $1 million. Why not? The country needs it, the state needs it, and it's my obligation to help. Along with benefits of wanting to be part of this nation come obligations. And I fully accept those and would love the opportunity to be able to help. So I said, no problem, that sounds great to me. Unfortunately, at this point, the California Supreme Court is waiting to decide my case. I graduated on May 9, 2009. I've been waiting almost 4 years for a decision. In these 4 years, with the exception of those 2 weeks, I have not been able to practice to the detriment not only of my emotional well-being and I guess my financial well-being, but also to the detriment of the California well-being and missing out on a substantial amount of money in taxes. So to me, I just failed to see a national interest in denying me a license. The arguments put forward by the Department of Justice for not giving me a license was that it would go against the 1996 Immigration Act. But their arguments, in my opinion, were rather superficial. And I think if they had actually bothered to research the act a little more, they would have realized that the intent behind that was to make sure that anybody coming in from another country, any immigrant, would come here and be a burden to the state. Said we want to make sure that nobody comes in here and takes advantage of us through welfare, through all the benefits that you're going to be asking for. That was the intent. So I ask again, how exactly am I going to be taking advantage of the state? How exactly will I be a burden to the state? Practicing law, creating job opportunities, and paying taxes. So, like I said, I find their arguments rather superficial. And again, I'm super happy, super excited for this new organization, the Liberty Initiative. I'm honored to be here tonight. I'm very grateful to you guys.